can't see your face.
Oh, you can't? Can you now?
No, you got to turn your video on.
Ah, I'm just wondering. Is it okay? It's amazing. Yeah, I'm looking. I don't see my profile in there. I don't see my face. This is strange. Now I just lost the video. I just lost audio.
Well, I have audio. I can hear you.
Now I hear you, but I don't have you. I don't.
There's my handsome uncle.
Hi, sweetie.
How are you?
Well, the day is not the best day as far as allergies go.
Oh
Man,
no.
it's pretty
It's
tough, but I'll survive.
it's Florida, huh?
I mean, very much so.
So what's the
And
weather?
the weather was yesterday. It was 80. Today is probably 60.
Oh, whoa, that's
Yeah.
a big drop.
Yes, it rained.
Well, in Pensacola, it's about 50 degrees today.
Oh, are you in Pensacola?
Nope, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
I thought
I'm
you were in
sorry.
Atlanta.
I'm sorry, Atlanta, Georgia is about 50 degrees today.
Okay. All
55.
right.
It looks like that sun is shining beautifully out there though.
Oh, actually, it's kind of cloudy. What you're seeing is just a reflection. Somehow it just comes on the back porch. The back porch always looks nice and shiny, but it's green out there. And I
Okay.
don't mean the right kind of green, it's pollen green.
Oh man. Okay.
Everything's covered in pollen. So when I went out last week, washed up the patio, and for what reason? Because the next thing I know, it was green again. So I just wait.
And see, here is yellow. Like
Oh
it's
yeah,
it's it's so
yeah.
yellow.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It's a
changed because the
yeah.
car is all on the. It's on it, everything on the patio. It's on the
Mm-hmm.
cushions, the doors, everything.
Gotcha. Very
I,
much so. I know what you mean. The car is all green, and I only had it outside for just a few minutes. But it found its way. The
mm,
front porch, everything. The streets are got this greenish yellow tint to it. Yeah.
yeah. So
All
Uncle Will,
right.
let me tell you what I wanted to do, and the vision was is that this is Black History Month, and
Oh, mm-hmm.
we are Black,
I
but
would have never knew that. Gosh,
but
what a
we have our
revelation.
own family hero.
Oh,
And so
well.
you don't know this, but everybody's so extremely proud of you. So we do a lot of bragging about you and about your accomplishments.
Why is
Shout out
that?
Miranda. Yes, we do. We love you. We're so proud of you.
Well, thank you, but I just a regular guy.
I know, and that's good. All amazing people say they're regular guys. So we wanted to get a chance to just hear your words, so that even the generation behind me and all of us will just have your words and be able to keep it a million years.
Oh, okay. We'll go along with that. But like I said, just a regular guy doing regular stuff. So,
Okay, Uncle Will. So let's start here. Tell us about you, the last thing that you did before you retired, and kind of give us some high level stuff about Mr. William Kyles.
it's Will. Birth
Mr. Will,
certificate.
Mr.
No
Will.
William. But,
You you know we've called you forever. You know we've called you forever though.
yeah, preacher.
Oh yeah.
How could I not forget? That's the name I was with me most of my life.
Yep, you were
And
Uncle.
that came from one of your aunts years and years ago. In fact, she was my great grand aunt who started that, and for whatever reason. But as you were saying, my last mission, shucks, I, that was a SpaceX. And I'm quite sure most people have heard of SpaceX, especially if your generation and the younger generations, that to know that they're some of the greatest innovators of space right now and what they're doing, because they are changing the whole scheme. And really, a lot of things have changed because of them and what their innovations are. But it was just to me, a normal mission where we just sat there, we sat up, the surveillance for them, and we sit there and make sure the countdown going. Now, a lot of people think that everybody involved in a space launch has to sit there with their hand on the button to push the button to say, hey, the rocket goes. But there's so many facets to how a rocket is launched. And one of my facets and my part was I had to keep America safe. Or not me
Mm.
personally, obviously, but we were there. There was what we call, there's an aspect called range safety. In other words, if that rocket launched and it decided it wanted to hit Orlando instead of going to space, I don't think the people in Orlando would be very happy at all if it did that.
Right.
So our job was to ensure that it went down its course, and we would track the mission through various means, and we will stand by to destroy it.
Mm.
So
So when there's a rocket launch, what's the preparation time for your what was the preparation time for your team?
our team time, well, first of all, we had to have the mission parameters. In other words, we had to know what were the plans on what trajectory it was going to take. In other words, the course. It, it's like a road.
Mm.
And we wanted to make sure, that's when we talk about trajectory, we want to make sure that the rocket stayed on the road.
Mm.
If it veered off the road, we destroyed it. So what we had to do, we had to come up with all the parameters for that. Secondly, we had to prepare all the trackers. That include radar, the visual trackers, understanding telemetry. That is the information that comes from the rocket that gives us the position of the rocket, view its inertial navigation system. And then we also would look at GPS data. Thank God for GPS data. Now it makes it a lot more simpler than it was in the old days. So now we would take all that information. You got radar that will track the rocket. You had telemetry will send back the information on where it thought it was at. You have visual information that we use via, it was like spotting you with a spotting scope, and the GPS information. We would put that all together and draw us a picture of the rocket in its flight.
Mm.
And now that took quite a while because we had to come up. Everything was sent to us and information about the rockets and how it fired, fuel consumption, how what the rocket rate is, how far it's going to go. There are certain things that you're right. Trying to say it all is it will get a little bit beyond high level, but just say all this went into it. And so we will start out probably about 3 to 4 months ahead of time,
Mm.
what we call mission planning. And then we will have to start doing our practices for it to make sure that we have all the aspects of it. And we will also do things to plan, and we will intentionally change some of these parameters or things so we can see what will happen if something went wrong with the mission. And so that's what we would do a lot. And that prep time, like I said, was about 3 to 4 months
Mm.
before we get to the launch phase.
Now tell me what a scary day would look like. You
A
working
scary
in at
day,
SpaceX. Yes.
a scary day is for us one day, and I'll give you an example. One day we were sitting around and we were doing what we thought was a routine, uh, what they call test fire of a mission. And this was a SpaceX mission. It happened a little while ago. It happened a while ago. And we were sitting there watching it on the pad, and it was planning to do the, the launch, just pretend, and it blew up.
Ooh.
They were fueling the rocket, and it blew up on the pad. And you're standing there, go, "Oh my goodness, that wasn't supposed to happen." And we just sit there and watched it and watched it and watched the flames. And that is what could happen when things
Mm.
go wrong. And those are the things you have to plan for and to ensure that we understand what to do. Our job was to observe and record at the
Mm.
time being because it was not. per se an active launch mission, but it was a mission. And we had to watch them go through. And the thing is, with that kind of fuel, you just let it burn.
Mm,
You turn off the source and let it burn. That's all you can do. You couldn't put it out. It'll be more dangerous for the people out there trying to fight it because those fumes are dangerous.
wow. Did you ever imagine that you would be doing something or have the opportunity to do something like that growing up in Pensacola, Florida?
All my life,
All your life, you knew that you were going to do something like that.
ever since I was 8 years old.
Wow. Okay. Tell me about that.
One of the things we used to do in elementary school, at the time it was segregated schools, and the teachers used to ask kids, what you're going to be when you grow up. And people always wanted to be a fireman, a cop, and it got around to me, and they said, "What you want to be?" And I said, "I want to be an engineer." And the teacher looked at me, one of the kids says, "Oh, you want to drive a train?" I said, "No, I don't want to drive a train. The engineers solve problems."
Hmm.
And some of the kids got it, the teacher got it, but most of the kids didn't get it. And how the genesis of all of that happens was we were in the infancy of space launches at the time. And every space launch was televised on television. And so here I am one day watching the launch, getting prepared and everything. And I turned around to my dad, your dad, dad also, and said, "That's what I want to do when I grow up." And
Wow.
he looked at me and he nodded his head, and we kept watching. I made up my mind then. And my biggest problem was trying to find how I got from there to there, from one point to one point. And I found a way. And the good Lord kind of pushed me a little bit in the
And
direction I needed to go.
it was the Air Force, the start, right?
No, I was in the Navy.
The Navy was the
Hmm.
start.
Hmm.
Okay. So that role, you going to high school, going
Hmm.
into the Navy.
Yeah. Yeah. I was in the Navy, and it so happened that when I joined the Navy, I had a specific job that I wanted to do. I wanted to be on a rocket launching vessel. And another one of those influences of television is they used to have all these old World War II movies on, and they had submarines there. And once again, I bypassed one of those roles that people put people in. People ask me, "Why do you want to be on submarines?" I says, "Why not?" They says, "But those things go underwater and they may not ever come back. So you get on the airplane, you may never come back."
Right.
So what's the difference? But they're so small and tiny. Okay. And I said, other people go on them. But that's not a place for black people.
Wow.
And here's one of those funny things, back in the day, we had this one guy, and you can ask your dad about him. We called him Stew Man,
Hmm.
a guy, and he used to hang out. And believe it or not, Stew Man was the first submariner I ever met. He was black. And Stew Man used to come by and tell us adventures of it. And as a kid, I was a little doubtful of it. And the
Mhm.
reason why I was doubtful of his stories because he used to always tell me he was an advisor to the captain. I didn't understand what he was saying. Just like if you've seen a lot of the old movies, you will always see that the rich philanthropist had this butler or chauffeur that he would always confide in. And the chauffeur or butler would give him sage advice about things. Back in the day, there were not a whole lot of roles for blacks
Mm.
to serve in the Navy and ships. And one of those roles that they could serve is called what you call a steward. A steward is really a butler. The steward is gone now. There's no such thing as a steward anymore in the Navy. But Stewman so happened to be a steward. And just like he was saying, which we didn't understand, yes, he was our advisor to the captain. Because when the captain was sitting there and Stewman were maybe serving his dinner or shining his shoes or whatever the menial job that they had him doing, the captain would talk to him.
Mm.
And a lot of times he would give him his input. And a lot of times that input was taken under advisement and could be executed. So, yes, there was a lot more to his story. And that also gave me the impetus to thinking that regardless of your station in life, there is some importance for each and every one of us. Everybody will not have the glamorous job where you're on television or you're being, the press is presenting you in such a light. You may have this background job, but it may be the most important job because if you don't do that job, a lot of other things don't happen. So just remember that also.
Yes.
Everybody does not have a glamorous job.
So do you feel like, and I love that statement because, we're in the kind of this time period where everyone wants to be seen. Everybody wants this glamorous position, wants to be out in the
Mhm.
forefront. And there's some of us that know that the real work is in the background.
Without the work in the background, you don't get the work in the camera people. Say, for instance, the guy that plugged in the camera, if you didn't plug it in, the electrician who turns on the power or makes sure that you have power, who, when something, the lights go out, somebody has to go, what's going on? Oh, let's go check the fuse box or let's go check the circuit breaker.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, we got a blown circuit. I don't know how to fix that. Call an electrician. Oh, yes. And things like that. When your car breaks down, you need a mechanic.
Yes,
Everybody does not have to have be magna cum laude from college to have a successful life.
yes, that's true. Uncle, well, right now in our community, there is a literacy problem, espe-
Yes.
especially plaguing our community. And what my dad would say is that you love to read
I did my share.
and that you would read anything. Do you believe
Yes.
that is kind of the formula to success?
I
Is to start.
believe read. Yeah, sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, for me, for a long time, I was a self-taught person.
Hmm.
Of course, I formalized my education later on in life, but I was a self-taught person. Most of my knowledge came from a book I read
Hmm.
somewhere. As entertainment, uh, as kids, we did not have the access to the public libraries that children today can enjoy if they so choose to.
Hmm.
There was, as far as I can remember, there was one library in town, and people of my skin color was not always welcome.
Hmm.
But my mom, a salesman that came along and brought her, sold her a set of encyclopedias. So every day, or just about every day. I can't say every day, but I would read the encyclopedias and I would gain a little bit of something. It would help me fuel my imagination on things. And I would read about things that I would not know about or had ever heard of, but I did. And I enjoyed reading. And it was such a way of expanding your mind as reading, and where you could sit there and you could see and be places, underneath the water, on the ocean, in the desert, in the jungle, on a safari, on a cruise ship, in space. Uh, just imagine anything you wanted to think about, and you could probably find a story about. And one of the things I found out is what you imagine in your head. The chances are, I don't care how far out and far fetched it may sound to you, someone has either tried it or explored it, or is
Mm,
also thinking of it at the same
mm.
time as you are. You're not alone. And there's a lot of people who use their imagination. If it was not for the imagination, we would not have the things that we have now.
Yes, that's true. And you know what?
Mhm.
Since you were talking about reading, I don't know if you
Mhm.
remember this, but when I was 24, I went to visit you, Aunt Joe, and the girls in Satellite Beach.
Right?
And you had this Bible, and you were like, "Listen, I'm getting ready to show you something. Something. I'm getting ready to blow your mind." And you showed me where there were missing books in the Bible,
Hmm.
and that started
Yes.
my exploration of the Bible. Those missing books. Why were they missing? Why was the Bible kind of like split into 66 books? And because of you, I had that interest in learning more.
Well, good. I'm
And that
glad
was
I did something.
that was late for me too. That was 24. And do you know the first time I told someone that they were like, I never heard of any missing books in the Bible. Now you hear about it all the time.
Yes. And you know how I knew that?
Oh.
Because I read about it. There are so many things, and some of these things are esoteric. In other words, little known
Mm,
facts that are hidden in history. And one of the things I was always curious about is who read these books and who actually wrote some of these books, and that some of the people in like all the epistles of Paul, you know, a lot of them he would have a name on it, but it was a lot of letters to them, and not from they were not the writers.
mm,
And
yeah.
then I had to find out about the religious leaders and why a lot of times women were left out of the stories of the Bible because men were in charge. And history, just like everything else, is written by those in charge. It may not be the truth or entire truth, but it's the truth from their viewpoint.
Yes.
And so you have to try to temper what you read with an understanding, and it gives you the appetite to explore a little more. Sometimes you take a little thread, just like if you have that loose thread on your clothes, and you pull and you pull a little more and you pull a little more, and you'll find out the information. And there's so many different paths that you can take. I just enjoyed it. As you can see, I can talk forever about that stuff because that was one of my passions in life, and it still is. At my age now, I still read my book. I have a book now, a story that I'm reading now.
And what are you
Of
reading
course,
now?
it's I more now read for enjoyment more so than for the facts and learning now. So I have a book of a fiction book. It's by an author called Clive Cussler, and he has written quite a few books, and they're mostly of action and adventure. Eh, You know, that's what I kind of enjoy now.
I love that. There was some book that you were reading. We were there in July for the family reunion. Yeah.
I, at the time, unfortunately, I read a book, I know what I read, but I forget the title of it and move on because the number of titles that I have written and stuff, more than likely, when you saw me, it was in June or July, and it's in July of this past
Yeah.
year. It may have been a Clive Cussler book, or it may have been a John Sanford book.
Okay.
It's hard for me to remember because once again, sometimes I can read a book in 3 days, and if I have other things to do, it may take me a week to read a book, but I will get it done because I do have my enjoyment of reading. And my it used to be I had a paperback or a hardback book to read. Now I joined the new generation and went to a tablet. I still don't like the phones because the writing's too small.
Okay. So, Uncle Will, let me tell you something. Your girls have talked over the years about just amazing father. You've been an amazing father. You've been there for them. And my greatest fear is that I'm not doing my best as a parent. And I want to make sure that I'm really giving Cam all that he needs, everything that he needs to grow. Because, of course, we adopted Cam, and it's really important to me that he succeeds in life. How
Uh-huh.
were you? How did you kind of toggle your extremely busy career and being a father and your home life and a husband? How did you make that balance work?
Well, first of all, as you know, and as every parent knows, they did not come up with a manual
Yeah,
on how to.
yeah.
There is a thing, uh, one of the things I did in my life and career was I was also an instructor when I was in the Navy. And we talked about this thing called kinesis. Kinesis is kind of like a sixth sense because it's a combination of your senses. And kinesis means it feels right. We make stumbles. We
Mm,
all do because we don't have a manual. So sometimes I had to listen to the mother and say, okay, these are not boys, so you cannot take the hard road with them. And you got to sometimes be gentle with them. Well, the kids love to play, so I would, like most children, so I would play with them and listen to them. And this is when you start to try to figure out their character
mm,
and their temperament and what they truly pay attention to and try to focus on that. It is sometimes it gets really tough to do, but as an adult, you have to be a little aware and also do a transformation. Put yourself in their place when they're looking up at you. What are they seeing?
mm.
Because that is really how they interpret things. It's what they're seeing. Also, remember this: they hear and see everything. And that is really what molds a child is. They will store away your habits because people will tell my children's and they will ask them when they meet me and says, oh, that's where you get that from. We were wondering little idioms about me, my little self things, and some of the words I say, or my expressions, or how I would say a word, or how I would turn a phrase. You know, the children watched you and they developed from you your some of their habits. Now they will take that and filter it through their synopsis and their mind's thoughts and how they think of things and what they interpret it is. But they're watching you. Every child starts off wanting to emulate their parents. It's what you do in your interaction with them and how they interpret it is what they generally turn out to be. Now, that is not a 100% chance of anything. There's nothing that's 100%. But chances are what you do and your actions is a lot more important than what you say. because they will verify what you say. They may not do it very proactively, but it's going to happen. And children will find their likes and dislikes and what they like in you and what they see in you. And the things they like, they will try to imitate them. The things they dislike, well, they try to throw those to the side. So the biggest thing is keep trying. Talk to them every day. Now, that's one of the things I did. I would talk to the girls every day. And Miranda and Shar loved to talk to me. And they would talk and they would talk. And I had to put aside my whatever I was doing and at least give them 15 minutes
Yes.
of airtime. Let them talk to me and let them know that I was an active listener and acknowledge them. And a lot of times parents would think, it's good. Sometimes children were looking for feedback and things with active questions or canvassing questions. Well, how did that make you feel? What did you do about that? You know, what was that supposed to mean? And things like that, where now they become active thinkers and what they were giving to you and pushes them a little further along.
Wow.
Is that what you were looking for, young
That
lady?
that is what I was looking for. That's what I need. I'm glad that I'm recording this so I could remember that. Um, just because you can get so busy and forget to just take the time, at least 15 minutes a day, to just talk to your child. Um,
Let them talk to you.
Let them talk to you.
You become an active listener
Mm,
and provide feedback. In other words, that feedback is very important because that tells them that you were actually listening. That's another one of those things you can lose a child on.
mm.
You can sit there and go, and the child asks you a question and you don't give the proper response. Now they know that you were not listening and they start shutting down on you.
Okay. Okay.
Children are very important and they're very studious and they're very observant.
Yes, I think we're raising a little genius over here.
Very
And
good.
so his
Everybody needs one.
yes, yes. I'm the one genius in our generation. I am.
Okay, very much
No,
so.
no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's definitely Tammy. It's definitely
Mm.
Tammy. Okay,
Oh,
so I have a
well.
question for you. Now, who was your hero when you were younger, and who's your hero now?
Well, that is a tough one because I didn't grow up with a lot of heroes, I thought, but in a positive manner, I would think it would have been probably the closest one I had to a hero would have been Muhammad Ali.
Wow.
He was I grew up in the days of Martin Luther King, Jesse Jackson, Ralph Abernathy, and all of those gentlemen. But Muhammad Ali was a man who put a lot of action into it, and he had a conviction. See, he was one of those people who was true to his conviction,
Mm.
and he stood up for his conviction, and he went to jail for it. And even after going to prison, he came back and fought. And once again, he reclaimed everything that they stripped away from him.
Mm.
And it's like, look at me. I'm not going anywhere. Regardless, you can do whatever you do to me, but I will still be here.
Mm.
And that gave me the thought of a little fortitude, persistence, and a goal that will not be deterred.
Because I'm sure you had to have resilience because I know the road that you were on, it couldn't have been, I knew it couldn't have been easy because of the time.
Yeah, Oh, resilience is something that we all practice. One, you had to practice your art and understand your art of what you wanted to do and achieve. And that's one thing, you set a goal, but I was one of those little kids that was that already had its goal set. And I really think that it was preordained by our Father that I would go on and do what I wanted to do
Mm.
because that's where He wanted me to be.
Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes you are put into places and you have no idea that you're going to be there or what you are doing there, but it happens. And the interaction sometimes of this world and your roles are sometimes you may think are by accident, but there are no accidents.
Come on now.
You do that because it's preordained. The good Lord says, hey, that little bony, skinny kid that I were when I would go on and do some of the things he did that people thought, nah, black folks don't do that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Yes, we do. What is what black folks do? No,
Come on now.
it's what men do and what women do and what people do. We're all going to do what we can do. And I was listening to the radio today about something, and there was this young lady talking about that a lot of times you have to bring your gifts to the table because you have a specialty. You have something that you do better than anybody else. You just have to find it.
Yes.
You
Yes.
as an individual. So
Mm, I got it.
continue to search, continue to look, because it's there. You just have to bring it out.
Yes. Uncle, I don't know if I had a chance to tell you this, but I now work for the King Center, Dr. Bernice King.
Hey, I saw the header on the
Yes.
email.
Yeah.
Hey, Teece, I
Yes,
can
sir.
read.
Let me tell you, Uncle Will, I love that job. It doesn't feel like a job. So I feel like we're studying nonviolence 365, right? And this the principle
Mm-hmm.
steps of nonviolence. And it has really transformed me into a better person. Now, I'm still working through some things, but the thought of the simplest things can be violent, even towards yourself, your relationships with your family, and your marriage. And I've just learned so many things. My job though is attached to the beloved Community Leadership Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Love children, I love that. But I get to do something that I've always dreamed of doing. I remember my dad used to bring us to the King Center when I was younger. And now to get
Mm-hmm.
part of this right now is so powerful for me. I am so grateful because I am a part of history. So now mentioned Dr. Martin Luther King. So now I am interconnected with this vision and this legacy going forward. And it makes me reach beyond. Like I am totally outside of my comfort zone, right?
Well,
And I love it. I love it. I love the learning aspect of it. And we were just reading, I'll show you this. So we get paid to read, Uncle Will. We get
uh-huh.
paid. So I was just reading this. I've read it a couple times. My Life, My Love, My Legacy by excuse me, Mrs. Coretta Scott King. She's
Yes.
the founder of the
I,
King Center, of course.
yes.
But
I saw that book in the store the
you
other
did.
day.
It's
Yeah.
good. I mean, I'm sure it's
Well,
things you already know. We grew up in Detroit.
mm-hmm.
So the social justice wasn't my fight at that time because of how we grew up.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely your generation and afterwards, I didn't even suffer any racism until really I moved here to Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Before it wasn't as evident because I think I was just kind of like sheltered from it. And then my first job was with an entire Black doctor's office. So a whole Black
Mm-hmm.
doctors team. So, I was with, there was no racism that I really saw there. So get to be a part of this at this stage
Hmm.
in life. I just feel really, really grateful. Really
Very
grateful.
good.
Really grateful. I'm glad.
Yes, the advantages of today now is we cannot forget where we come from
Yes.
and the roots. There is a lot I've seen in my years now, something that you guys will hopefully never see again. I'm
Mm,
in the last of the generations of people now. People my age are the only ones who can remember seeing the three bathrooms and the
mm,
two different water fountains, the
mm,
colored only. You know, it was something else growing up to see you walk into a store if they had a bathroom for you
mm,
that had man, woman, and colored.
mm.
And
Wow.
it is kind of humbling to think and how we just made it through some of those days, just to think about that I had to be segregated like that, and where I could not sit at a lunch counter and eat. And it was nothing growing up in Pensacola to be walking down the street. You know where we lived at on Ninth Avenue,
Yeah.
which was a well-traveled thoroughfare. And all of a sudden, someone will roll down their window and holler out the N word at you, and you're just walking down the street as a kid.
Mm,
Or you're walking through a neighborhood and they would sick a dog on you just for
wow.
the fun of it. And there were no real repercussions
Mm,
from their actions at the time. So now you overcome some of those things.
yes.
And the biggest thing is people wonder why there was so much anger in the black neighborhoods. People got tired of being denigrated,
Yes.
stepped on, spit at,
Mm,
ignored, and just flat out cheated.
yes.
Right. You know, uh, so, I was looking at some of your questions you said, and I said, yeah, we're touching deep seated, deeply, that is one of the wounds that has been the hardest to heal in my life was why.
Wow.
Why can a man be so hateful and so spiteful to each other
Mm,
and still call themselves Christians?
yes.
That was one of the biggest paradoxes. And I still have never truly saw that. They will sit there and says, we're all, you listen to the service, we're all children of God. We must learn to love each other, and then go out and spit at you.
Mm,
Or put on a sheet and have burn a cross in front of your house.
yes.
But they did that.
Yes.
And they wonder why sometimes people are so violent toward them.
Yes.
Because we learned. You remember that we just a few minutes ago I was talking about children
Yes.
who would learn
Yes.
others' actions and not their speech. Guess
Yes.
what? We learned as the children of our masters how to be violent
Mm,
because that was what we got from them. Their violence toward us, their raping, their maiming, their shooting, their all the just totally bad things and misgiven and unchristian things that they perform. And then they would walk around with a cross.
Mm.
And you ask yourself, how?
Yes.
And you would ask the Lord for forgiveness
Mm.
because we all will need forgiveness. But one thing I do know, regardless of what you do here on the earth, you will answer for it when you come to go to the judgment seat.
Mm.
And ain't no lawyer gonna have any of these Perry Mason tricks or any of these tricks of all these other paid lawyers. You have one person there who can be your lawyer. And if he looks in the book of life and he doesn't find your name there, he can say before the Father, I never knew you.
Mm. Yes. Yes. I'm on a 90-day. I call it my days of destiny, Uncle Will. And during this time, I consecrate myself really so
Mm-hmm.
I can hear from God, so I can be in the place of yielding so that I can continue to witness to people because I don't know if you know this, but your niece can kind of like tell people off pretty good.
It comes in the family.
Yes. And go off. But that's a part of me that I want to sanctify. Like going forward, I want to be much more pure and not feel the need to defend myself because I know that the Lord is my defense. But sometimes I do step into my flesh and attempt to defend myself or just discuss things that are happening um, to me personally and in business. At this point in my life, I don't want that kind of energy anymore. I really want to focus on, listen, if this happens at this age, it happens and I move on where I don't feel the need to call somebody and say, I know you did not cost me
Mm-hmm.
this. I know you did not say that. um, where I have a level of spiritual maturity that I'm able to still be able to help people because I can see the lack of when I'm on a 90-day consecration, I can see the lack in myself. I can see like,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, or like this beautiful woman there's a pastor. Her name is Vita Nichols, and she said, you can't have that much play in you. That's a little too much. Don't have that much play in you. And she was really saying, like, be a little more serious. Take this spiritual walk a little more serious. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
don't make light of it. So you were so right about the hypocrisy that has happened in the past. And we bring that, and I've seen it in my own life. We're doing it, and I don't want to be that way either. Where people look and say, Teece talks about God a lot, but she will tell you off. So I'm
There is a lot to be considered there, young lady. But the biggest thing is every day that you wake up when you get to this, you start to learn to appreciate that you don't have to be here
mm,
and you don't have to be
yes.
breathing anymore. I
Mm,
look back, my best friend in life that I had growing up didn't make it to 40.
wow.
He died before he was 40 years old. Lifestyle
Mm,
killed it,
mm,
you know. And it was one of those things I asked myself because I still remember one of the last long, hard conversations we held with each other. This was in 1978. I decided that I had had enough of Pensacola and I was leaving. And so I had now went down, joined the military. So I go to my buddy and he says, hey man, where you been? I says, I wouldn't join the military. I wouldn't join the Navy. Oh yeah? I said, come on down with me. I told them about you and they said that we can have you on the buddy progress. I'm not doing that like that. I'm staying right here and you're not gonna like it there and you'll be right back. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he was right. I did
mm,
come back. But 9 weeks later, after boot camp, wearing
mm,
my uniform and on my way to someplace else, and realizing for the first time in my life that there is something out there besides that small little microcosm of a world that we lived in.
Mm.
There were exciting people, exciting adventures, and there were places I could go that I had only read about.
Wow.
And I could meet people with different ideas. Some who were more than willing to help. And I am, most of all, I will thank the Father for leading me down that path because to say I wasn't nervous, I was sure, but I wasn't always sure.
Mm.
Let's say that. But I stayed the path because I knew it was the right thing to do.
Yes. Yes.
And so here I am now. That was, let's see, 46 years ago
Wow.
that I left. Uh, it was, I left Pensacola in February 1978. It's now February 2024, 46 years later.
Wow.
And I've seen the world, I've enjoyed the world, and I have embraced what the world truly has to offer.
And Uncle Will, what does the world truly have to offer?
Anything that you can imagine. If you imagine it and you reach out and grasp it with the help of our Father,
Mm.
you can obtain it.
Yes.
There is no limit to you.
Come
The
on.
person that limits you is you.
Yes. Yes.
Once again, I go back to what I was saying when I was talked about when hearing this person on the radio talk about everyone has a unique gift. It's finding your gift.
Yes.
It's having the drive to once you set a goal, you obtain that goal.
Yes.
No one says it's going to be easy and that it's going to come right to you. There could be obstacles thrown in your way. There were times in my life that I set a goal and it was easily obtained. And there were times where, gosh, this is hard.
Mm.
Do I really want to do this? You mean to tell me I got to do this? I got to do that? I got to do this? I got to do that? And then I want to get to step one. I got to get to step 25. How am I going to do this? This is hard. But if you want it, you're going to have to do
Yes.
it.
Yes.
You cannot rest until you do it. Your body should be prepared for the fight, and which
Mm.
means you should be mentally and physically ready. And this is a message to all the young people. That old saying that you heard that your body is a temple, then treat it that way. You know, what you put in is what you get out.
Yes.
If you consume the wrong foods, the wrong drinks,
Mm.
and the wrong other substances,
Mm.
you will suffer. It is just like you're driving a car and you go to the service station and you decide to, oh, I'm too cheap to put gas in the car. Let me put water in the gasoline tank.
Mm.
See what happens to that engine. It
Yes.
doesn't run well.
Yes.
In fact, it won't run at all because that is not what you need and what your body wants. and what your mind wants. The same thing is, there is a little something to say. And because it's not my generation, it, there is something for those who sit around and watch and play video games. But you can't do that all day. You need to feed your mind. Yes,
Yeah.
video games are good for your hand-eye coordination, but that's only one part, and it's only a couple senses. The other senses, the big one is the one up here that needs to be fed constantly,
Yes.
or it will rot on you.
Mm.
It's just like going out in the vegetable garden. You got to fertilize it. And
Yes.
how do you fertilize your mind? With information. How do you obtain an information? It's not by sitting around scratching your knee. You got to
Yes.
do something. And you got to be active with it. And you need to feed an active mind all day when you're there. Input,
Mm.
visually, orally, I, and by touch. All the things is that you do. I remember one of those things when I was teaching how people learn. If you talk to someone, they may remember about 35% if you just talk to them
Mm.
and they talk to them. But if you talk and read something, you'll learn about 60%
Mm.
will be retained. If you read, hear it, and do it, now you get around 80 to 85% that you remember that. And with practice, constant reinforcement is how do you get to that 100%? Well, you want to obtain that. You know, the actuation of how you elevate yourself.
Mm.
Going on with the Maslow's hierarchy. You know, you got your basic survival levels, and then the further you go up, the left till you get to what we call self-actuation, where everything you do is because you want to, not
Yes.
because you need to. And that's
Mm.
what everybody wants to be or should be.
Yes.
So there you go. Little simple plan. Oh, I
Uncle,
knew.
that's so powerful. I'm going to do it. And I know this is going to be a blessing to not just our family, but to other people too, because you are a wealth of information. Not only are you a wealth of information, naturally, just spiritually, you are a heavyweight.
Okay, if you say so.
It's true. It's true. And I love that. I'm going
It's
to
just
get,
a simple, remember what I said, just a
yes, sir.
simple guy who so happens to maybe know a little bit of something about this thing. But
Yeah, that
by and
work
large,
that worked at SpaceX and NASA, and they couldn't launch a rocket without you.
yes, they could. They're still doing it, aren't they? That's another thing. Never think that you are not replaceable.
That's
There will always be someone that can replace you.
that's right. Now, I have a question. This one is juicy.
Okay.
This one is juicy, Uncle Will.
Okay.
So, do you remember a couple of months ago when people was coming out and saying that there has been artificial intelligence that the
Mm-hmm.
government has known about for quite some time? And what's your take on that, kind sir?
Well, a lot of times you got a lot of conspiracy people.
Okay.
Ever since the advent of the computer, you can consider that a little bit artificial intelligence. But you got to remember what artificial intelligence really, truly is.
Mm.
People think it's a machine that's thinking for itself. No, it's not right now. We're nowhere near that stage. What
Mm.
it is a wealth of information from inputs from so many different sources. In
Mm.
other words, what you have now is you have a single mouth being fed by millions of inputs.
Mm.
And it has gotten to the point now where we have enough information that it could act upon itself. In other words, it now has all the possible scenarios. Before, you were missing a lot of them
Mm.
because they were not giving you inputs. In other words, you remember when I talked earlier about if you thought about it, if you imagine it, someone has already tried it,
Yes.
done it, or are also thinking about it? In a sense, this is what I'm talking about for AI.
Mm.
It's all those possibilities that I talked about. And there are billions of them are now going into one central spot. And that spot, when it hears keywords from someone, can pull back into the resources, into the reservoir of information that has been inputted into its data banks and come up with your outcome.
Mm. Is it a threat right now? Do you feel like
Or
okay?
anything can be a threat.
Okay.
Yeah, that is one of those things is I don't want to go Terminator with people, but people
Okay.
have to be very careful
Mm.
with what they do. When you do things with nefarious thoughts, you will get a nefarious result.
Mm.
Things, and unfortunately, man goes there every time.
Mm. Wow.
So it's how anything is utilized. How something is utilized is really what it is. You got to remember everything that comes from the Father, it's good. It's
Mm.
how we use it. And artificial intelligence, all the information we got, all comes from the Father.
Yes.
But He gives us free will. And we do evil to each other a lot of times because it's so easy.
Mm.
So, did I answer your question?
You did.
That's a very tough question to answer. And it's kind of like everybody has their interpretation. My interpretation is AI as AI standalone is no different than anything else, but it's how man, and when I mean man, is humankind, how do we utilize it? It's going to determine the nefariousness and what we actually do with it.
Mm. Well, that's awesome. And I thank you for that
Mm.
answer. Uncle Will, I would love to do this like once a month. I don't know if you have time. Why you say, Tell me yes.
Mhm. We'll see.
Okay.
You know, your uncle likes life too. And if the weather getting warmer, that means I'll be outside on
What
my
are you gonna be
back.
doing? Where you gonna be going?
Well, let me see, I'll be outside. I got me my man cave, my personal man cave is outside on
Okay.
the back porch. I got my barbecue, my TV. I got my table for me to sit and read my books, turn on my fan, watch the lake. I should have fish in the
Oh,
pond this year. So I'm gonna bring out my chairs and set up my canopy and sit out there
let's say hi.
and maybe cook me
Somebody want
a
to say
hot
hi to
dog.
you, Uncle Will.
Oh, okay. Hi.
What's going on?
Hey.
Hey, you
Same old,
see,
same old. God is good to me. He's given me the opportunity to talk to my beautiful niece for a couple minutes.
this
Maybe
up,
I'll pass on something. Maybe I won't.
this
Maybe
up and
she'll
coming
listen
Barbara
to
Walker,
the.
Barbara Wawa. Hey, Barbara Wawa.
Uh-huh. I hear you. Yes, she's doing her thing. And God bless you, you guys.
Hey,
Because,
girl.
some of this stuff needs to be talked about.
Yes.
It needs to be
Awesome.
passed on because we're not going to be here forever, but the word can be.
Come
Hey,
on.
man, come on, come on.
Yes. That gave me chills.
And I like that breakdown about the AI. That
All right.
yeah. Thank you for putting it in
If you
perspective
say
because
so.
we got conspiracy theories over here.
Well, everybody has their thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing
Yes.
wrong with being wary, but also take that with a grain of salt.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Well, Uncle, well, I love you so much. I gotta get a Cam off the bus, but
All right.
thank you for this
Well,
beautiful conversation. You are the best.
love you.
Love you too.
Enjoyed our conversation, and we'll
Yes.
do this again another time.
Okay, we'll do it again.
All right.
You the
All
best.
right.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You do the
Okay.
same. All right. Bye bye.
Bye.